we know when we've seen what's happened in the West Bank regularly. I mean, it's just the day-to-day aggression and expansion has been there for decades, and it just gets very little coverage. Occasionally, there's an incident that gets some media coverage in the U.S. and the West more broadly. But in general, this constant expansion and oppression of into the West Bank and oppression of the Palestinians in general. It's a day-to-day thing that just is ongoing, and it gets very little attention. There's killings every week, and homes destroyed, bulldozed, and so on. We can go on and on and on. Both takes a different form, but in Gaza and the West Bank, it doesn't get covered. And then finally, if there's some kind of response, it could be a terrorist response. That it happened more often in the past, but it was a response after the Israelis had been doing this, for years and years. There's a suicide bomber, and then it's just like, oh, how can the Israelis, put up with this? They've obviously now got to bomb these people into oblivion, because you never talked about the daily horror, right?
Right. I mean, well, King Abdullah touched on this in his UN speech. Just talking about just the West Bank, obviously what's been happening in Gaza is just beyond the pale in terms of death and destruction. But over 700 people have been murdered in the West Bank since October 7th. So we're talking about, about 2 a day, including some Americans, right? An American was killed just a couple weeks ago, shot in the head. And then Biden said, oh, the bullet ricocheted and hit her. Doesn't even try to give condolences to it. But not only that, I think people need to realize that since October 7th, over 10,000 Palestinians have been taken hostage or detained, but it's a hostage situation. They take them. There's no trial. There's no
due process, right?
No due process whatsoever. And over 4,000 of them are women, and over 730 children that have been detained. So to a day, this isn't the West Bank. We've both been there. It's not a big place. That these villages some of them have just completely wiped out, that they've had to flee because these settlers have taken them over. And think about, they will go in and steal your children and take your children and detain them and with nothing, and just use them as hostages. And
I mean, this is the horrible reality. And then we have the complete made up, story about Putin somehow taking children from Ukraine and what, of course, the whole thing was total nonsense, but that's what the ICC issued a warrant, for. That's why Putin's actually threatened with arrest. But this is real. This is ongoing, and it just is, it's just met with, it's ignored, right?
It's completely ignored, and it's infuriating when you go on social media and you just see this bring them home, talk about the hostages in Gaza. Which it's horrible for them too.
I would feel the same way if I was a member of that family or whatever. But feel for them, that's fine. But then if you're a real human being, and you claim to have some sort of concern for humanity in general, think about the 10,000 Palestinians and all those families, all those mothers are wondering, when they're, and wives are going to say, when's my husband going to ever come home? Will he ever come home? Will he be the same? Well, what are they doing to him there? And, my child, what are they doing to him there? They know the kind of horrible, treatment that they're subjected to in those prisons.
Right. I mean, just as a relatively new father myself, just the idea of these people taking your children and holding them hostages. I mean, who knows what I would do? Who knows how far I would go?
Thing. I think the suicide bombing is never justified. In the end, it actually is counterproductive. But when you look at what these people have been through, when they've experienced exactly what we're talking about, and it's not just like it happened once, but it's like that's what they grew up with. At some point, something snaps inside and said, I'm just going to go and take out a bunch of those guys, with me. And you can actually understand that happening. You can't say, oh, these are just a bunch of crazies. If it happened here, in rural America, we would see the same thing, over time, people would just say, I've had it. I'm going to, my neighbor so-and-so, he's just going to go in and blow himself up because he's just too much. And You say you try to persuade him not to, but you understand why he would do it, right?
Right. And I think more and more people are understanding around the world, because sometimes I will get emotional, or just through empathetic channels of being sympathizing with what the Palestinians have seen and experienced, especially if you see these videos of children that have been just shredded, just horrible things. It's
Right,
hard
right,
to take any emotion out of it and not.
right.
And I think this is what's destroying Israel in many
Yeah,
ways. And
right.
um,
Well, again,
and
one thing I just want to mention real quickly, because we're talking about, um, we're forgetting about Gaza, but the horror is ongoing there. Just like because of there's so much going on. We forgot about the West Bank because of the Gaza horror, and now Lebanon is causing us to focus our attention there, and we're forgetting about the Gaza horror. But I think it was just yesterday, 32 children were killed in
the
Gaza.
school bombing, right?
Right,
They
right.
bombed the
Nobody,
school.
it's hardly even noticed because now all the focus is on Lebanon. It's just that the Israelis are doing so much that people can't keep up with the carnage.
Right. And my fear is that once we have this chaos, when now all eyes are on Lebanon, this is when we will see ratcheting up in the West Bank and in Gaza. They may
Yeah,
feel like this
yeah.
is the
It's just
time to
people, right?
really.
The focus has shifted, and right, that could be very true. It may be even part of the plan.
I mean, I almost feel like it's already kind of happening.
Yeah,
I feel like the West Bank is starting to set fire, more so. I mean, we'll see.
no,
But yeah, it's just terrifying.